From the news team at LinkedIn, I'm Jesse Hempel, and this is Hello Monday. There's a scene right at the top of Jesse Eisenberg's new movie, A Real Pain, where his character, David, has just met up at the airport with his cousin, Benji. Now, David and Benji, they're going on a trip, and you get the sense that, well, David is the buttoned-up cousin, a little OCD. Benji, who is played by the actor Kieran Culkin, is not.
I got some good shit from when we land.
Wait, you're not like taking weed into Poland, are you?
Oh yeah,
Benji?
they don't give a shit about that stuff.
I think they very much do give a shit about that.
Yeah.
And just like that, this movie's script hooks you. The dialogue is just so good. The writing is on fire, and in just a few lines, Jesse has told you so much about the characters and the adventures they're about to have. Now, you're probably familiar with Jesse's acting work. He's been acting since he was a teen. He was nominated for an Academy Award for his role as Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network. He played a talented illusionist in Now You See Me, and Now You See Me 2, and soon to be Now You See Me 3. I loved watching him as Toby Fleischman in the Hulu miniseries Fleischman is in Trouble. Jesse is 41, and for all the decades that he's been acting, he has also been writing. Funny jokes, humor essays, lyrics to the fictional national anthems of made-up countries. But a lot of this early stuff didn't exactly pay the bills.
I would spend a week just writing weird songs while my wife was at her, normal job.
That's Jesse. He came into the studio, and I'm going to bring you our full conversation after this break. Jesse Eisenberg would be the first to tell you that there was hardly any market for his early writing. It was weird by design. If he acted because he was successful at acting, and it became a career, well, then he wrote because he couldn't not. In an early episode of Hello Monday, our old friend Elizabeth Gilbert called this a calling. But somehow over time, with a bit of luck and some very deliberate design, Jesse has channeled that calling into a broadening of his career. These days, he tries to turn out a screenplay worthy of production and with at least the potential for commercial success every year. Today, Jesse joins us in the studio to discuss his career, his calling, and where these ideas intersect. Here's Jesse.
It's a little bit of both. I was doing children's theater, and that I didn't choose. I just wanted to be with my older sister who was doing it. And then I would say it started becoming something that I would consider maybe having more agency in when I really started having trouble in school, and I was 13 years old, and acting for me gave me kind of an outlet. Originally it was really just to get out of school, because if you're in a play, you get to leave on Wednesdays and you have to rehearse for weeks. And so for me, acting, I would say I pursued it at about 14 years old when I realized this can help me get out of school. And then as an art form, it came a little bit later. Yeah,
Right.
It came a little bit later.
At what point did you decide my adulthood is going to be the adulthood of a working actor?
Oh, yeah. I think probably when I was 18 or 19, in my last year of high school, I got into this great movie. It was called Roger Dodger. I got in through a series of fluky things, which is I went to performing arts high school, and I had an agent, and the director of this movie said, we're doing a reading at the Neo-Rican Poets Cafe of this script. Do you have any clients who are like this? And I fit the bill. So I did this reading of this thing. It actually got turned into a movie, which was like winning the lottery, that it actually got financing. Anyway, so I was in this small movie, which became kind of like an indie hit in New York called Roger Dodger. And I went to my father after that, and I said, can I defer college for 6 months? And he said he saw the movie and he realized that it was really good and that I must have had some kind of innate skill set that could possibly be fruitful, and said, yeah, I can. And so I would, so I started working.
I don't, forgive me that I don't know this, but did you go to college?
Yeah, I graduated during the pandemic after 18 years. I went from 18 to 36, and would like leave every other semester or leave for 2 semesters to act in a movie. And so I was going back and forth, and it was great. And it was always this, mix of something really wonderful hanging over my head and also a sort of Damocles because I wasn't sure I was ever going to graduate. But it gave me this bit of a cushion. So when I wasn't happy with my acting career, wasn't happy in the arts, I could pretend I wasn't in the arts at all and just be a student, even in my, early 30s.
So you're in this interesting moment in your career now. It's not a moment, it's probably a multi-year shift, where earlier in your career, you were acting and that's what you were doing. And then you've moved into directing, which is a really different kind of role, right? This is the second film you've directed. What's the sort of difference between the two?
A lot of directing for me is about kind of like protecting my scripts, rather than a director who didn't write their own scripts, which for them is like, how can they put their visual print on it? And for me, the directing has been an extension of my writing because I'm writing kind of personal things, So directing feels to me a lot like kind of managing a circus, like there's all these creative things happening around me, but my job is to kind of like make sure morale is up and make sure like we're on time. It's really like a lot of scheduling and managing. And I remember thinking a lot about like if somebody's plane is coming in on time tomorrow because they need to dye the actor's hair, and if they come in too late, then the actor's hair isn't going to have time to dry. This kind of logistical stuff that I don't really put in the box of great creativity. It's managerial, but for me, it's about protecting the thing that was very creative, which was the script. And I want to make sure the words are said the way I hear them, and that the kind of, the pretentious word is vision, but what's the euphemism for vision? That my intentions, let's say, come across.
So is it fair to say that acting is a fairly narrow expression, whereas directing requires you to have sort of many different areas in which you need to be confident and an expert in order to be successful?
Except acting can be not narrow too. Like on the set of this movie that you watched so graciously twice. I was acting alongside Kieran Culkin, and I wouldn't characterize his work as anything other than kind of like just brilliantly expansive, but not in the way that I'm discussing with managing and strategizing. In fact, he would come to set not knowing what scene we're doing that day. And I would say, can you look at the script for a minute? And he would look at the script for like 30 seconds. And then he'd be word perfect on a 5-page dialogue scene because he was just like living in the spirit of this character. So that means he was like sleeping 2 hours a night. He was coming to set. He didn't eat the night before. Like he was just living like this character does, which is kind of like this moment to moment spontaneous thing. And so I would call what he was doing very, very rich and expansive and thorough, but it just didn't look anything like me, who was basically just trying to drink kefir and eat fruit every day to stay healthy, because I had to manage this, like baseball team of a project.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's a very specific approach to how you manifest a character. How does that compare to your approach for how you manifest a character?
I've been really driven by just anxiety on set, and what I've been doing and what my acting teacher has kind of helped me do is all of the anxieties I feel of being on a movie set and being, having these demands of having to emote at the exact right time in front of a bunch of strangers, or having to be happy on cue, which is not a thing that I naturally, tend to anyway. Like all that stuff is, she said, all the anxieties I feel about my job, about having a close-up on your face that's going to be blown up on a screen, use that in the character. So I have all this kind of this nerves and this stuff in my body and emotions and being anxious and almost want to like, I feel close to like crying during the day because I'm panicked and the set is big and I'm there, and I just channel that into what my acting is, and it enlivens the characters and makes the characters have real feelings, because I do have real feelings, even though I'm not feeling the same circumstantial things as my character. The feelings are very similar.
So that set of feelings that you're describing would make me think that maybe personally a job is not for me. Is directing something that you want to continue?
Yeah, I like doing all of it. I mean, the real truth is two things. One is that I feel like I'm in a very unstable industry, and I feel like if I'm not doing 15 things at a time, none of them are going to happen. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is I like all this stuff. I really do like it. My next movie that I'm directing is like a musical, and I've always wanted to write music. So this is giving me the opportunity to kind of stretch that muscle and write music. And I just want to like do everything that I possibly can because first of all, I feel like it overlaps quite a bit, but also because that's the stuff I really just like.
Yeah, I hear that. So I want to talk a little bit about what writing is like for you.
Oh, sure.
When did you start writing for yourself?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I started writing like jokes when I was like 14. I found them recently. That was when I started really writing, I would say, with like a voice. What I mean by a voice is, I guess, just like you could read one joke and another joke and see that it came from the same person, which is important for writers, that they have, they have some kind of spark inside that, allows readers to hear a voice, even if the characters are different, even if the voice is being filtered through different stories. And so that's kind of when I started writing. And then I would write screenplays when I was 16. When I was like 19, 20, I wrote some scripts that got sent because I had an acting agent, got sent to producers in LA, and the scripts were optioned, not with money. They didn't pay me, but they optioned it for a year or whatever and tried to get it made. None of the scripts got made.
Right.
And then when I was about 22, I gave my comedy scripts to this brilliant guy, Bob Odenkirk, who's a great writer and now a very famous actor. And he just yelled at me for an hour about how I'm writing these big commercial comedy scripts. And he said, You're a young artist. You're a 22-year-old artist. Why are you writing this impersonal stuff? This is the time you should be experimenting. You should be writing poetry on your wrist. And so basically, I put that stuff down and I started writing plays. And that's where I really found my voice professionally, because I'd had a lot more luck writing personal theater.
And that's the sort of the commercial journey that your writing took.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious because I really see your writing as more of a calling.
Yeah.
I'm curious if it feels like something you could not do, that you could put down, and where it fits into your actual daily life.
Well, I'll say before I started writing stuff that I knew would be produced, which is like to say plays or essay for the New Yorker. I know I have like an in there that they'll publish my humor stuff. And so before that started, I was writing really obscure, weird stuff, like writing lyrics to every country's national anthem to learn about the countries, writing weird stuff that would have no value in the marketplace, writing weird songs. And I would spend a week just writing weird songs while my wife was at her, normal job. And so that's what I was doing. And then my acting career started taking off a little more and I got a little more busy. Then we had a child 8 years ago. And so now my writing time is smaller just because I have more things to do during the day. And now I'm directing. So I have all this, other stuff happening during the day, that now what I do is I really just very, very explicitly and calculatedly set aside, 2 or 3 months at a time. And I go to the library in New York. I go to the same library every day and I write. And the thing that has kind of saved my life has been that I sit next to a guy, Jim Beggerly, who's this amazing guy. And he writes his own scripts and I write my own scripts. And we kind of, we help each other during the day. And it has changed everything, because I used to sit in my apartment and just around my dirty apartment, and just looking around, being disappointed that I didn't clean and just struggling to write. And now I go to a place that I don't have to clean and that I have a person there who keeps me on task, kind of.
So even Jesse Eisenberg has that problem where you sit in your own dining room table and you look at the laundry and you can't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that's, again, that it's like, it used to take me it'd take me like a year to write a play. And what would take so long would be this stupid thing of I'd sit down and I'm like, okay, wait, do they go get ice cream now or do they stay indoors? And it would kind of, paralyze me creatively if they get the ice cream or stay indoors, get the ice cream. And actually it doesn't really even matter. Maybe they'll do one would be interesting, one would be, anyway. And then I would go outside. Oh, maybe if I have a coffee at a coffee shop, maybe this would help. So I go to the coffee shop. Of course, that doesn't help. And then you go home and then time has passed and you've done nothing. And now I go to the library, I sit next to Jim and I'm writing for a few hours. I say, Jim, should they go to the coffee place? And he knows what my story's about. Or should they go to the ice cream place or they stay home? He goes, oh, why don't they stay home this time? That's it.
And then
I stay home and the thing is equally good. And maybe the ice cream thing would be good too, but just to have an answer.
You're talking about a framework and accountability structure that you made up for yourself that
Exactly.
work because they exist.
I got so lucky. When this thing happened, when I met this guy, Jim, who's a phenomenal writer in his own right, when I met him, it was just life-changing. And so what I've been able to do is right now basically just make my time so that I can just, basically have a script every year so that I'll never be not busy. And my acting jobs can kind of come and go as they normally do, which is to say, as frequently as something completely unstable and unpredictable, and I'll always have a script to direct.
As Jesse describes his writing cadence here, it strikes me that his writing has become core to the success of his career. If it began as a creative outlet, it has become the engine that allows him to endure the instability of piecemeal work. When exactly did that happen? We'll get into it after the break. And we're back with actor and filmmaker Jesse Eisenberg. I'm very curious about when your creative aspirations fell in line with what a commercial market might want.
That is a genius question, a absolutely genius question, and something I think about all the time. I read a lot of good scripts, and I have friends who write a lot of good things. But my biggest criticism of it is always, this is great. There is no room in the marketplace. Do you see what is coming out every week? Do you see what people are seeing? And I'm not saying that you should reverse engineer your things to be commercial. I'm just saying they have to be something that can exist in the world. And movies don't have to be for everybody, but they have to be for somebody. And so I'm incredibly aware that when I'm writing something when I have those 3 months off, when my wife very generously agrees to pick up my kid every day so I can stay at the library, what I do is make sure that thing has just legs. And I'm not saying I'm reverse engineering my thing. It's just like my new movie. I knew I could make a movie that cost $3 million, but if I set it in Poland, it could have major scope. That you could be shooting in Poland and it could look like a big movie because the movie's a road trip. So it innately feels like it has scope. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. It also feels to me like you seem very cognizant right from the beginning in your projects around the cost structure for what you're ultimately creating. And I'll give you an exact example of what I mean.
Yeah.
The music in A Real Pain is so particular and really brings the whole story to life. And I know because I produce audio is
it's free.
Free.
Yeah.
And that was by design, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love Chopin. My movie takes place in Poland, but I was writing this script at a time where I was editing my previous movie, and it cost us $15,000 to get this nightclub song that no one ever heard of. And it was just basically, we were at a pressure situation, and they said, it's going to cost $15,000 to have this song that you barely hear in the movie in a nightclub scene or something.
Right.
And I was just I cannot believe this is the process. And so as I was writing this movie, A Real Pain, that took place in Poland, I started listening to Chopin, and then I thought, let's just have all Chopin music, and it will give it this great sophisticated tone, even though the characters are behaving like kids. And it served a lot of purpose. It served a lot of, great purpose. And yes, you're exactly right. It was totally free because it's public domain.
So on the creativity front, now this movie exists out in the world. And so people like me, we're talking about it.
Right.
But you probably haven't touched it in a little while.
Yeah, exactly.
Does it feel really far away to you?
Yeah, especially because I'm knee deep into my next project. And I partly do that on purpose because I'm so uncomfortable with scrutiny. I imagine people who are not in the arts might think that people in the arts have this great thick skin because, look, they deal with rejection all the time. And, you get 10% of the jobs that you try out for or whatever. And most writing gets rejected. But no, I have incredibly thin skin. And so, the fact that A Real Pain is coming out and people are talking about it, and most of the things are overwhelmingly positive. But, even if I hear a little crack in the positivity or whatever, even if somebody doesn't say the exact right positive thing, it just breaks my heart. So I'm always trying to have, the next thing on the horizon because there's truthfully nothing I could do about A Real Pain now. I cannot change a frame of it.
Right.
And so it is what it is. And I want to move on.
So I have had very talented actors in this chair who have said, I never read a review. Mm-hmm. And others who have said, actually, the review is really critical of my process. I'm curious where you fall.
Oh, I just started reading just for A Real Pain, basically because this is the best reviewed thing I've ever done. And I'm getting, Searchlight, as the company puts it out, they put me on these lists. And so they'll say, please read this positive review. And they're sending it to 60 people who work on the publicity team. There was a really positive review that called me as an actor an acquired taste. And I was like, what, I'm an acquired taste? And so even though the review is a rave review about the movie and even saying, I love Jesse, even though he's all I came away with was I'm apple cider vinegar or something. So these are not the most helpful things to read. read.
Well, and look, you're talking about the ways in which you might feel badly about yourself, but I would think that there's a risk for your creative person feeling good about yourself after reading a review too, that it actually might start to inform your creative process if you're like, this is what the world wants from me.
You are so insightful, and this has been my problem in the last 2 weeks. It's exactly my problem the last 2 weeks, which is that I'm reading these positive things as I'm gearing up to make my next thing, and it's exactly what you said. I was like, but wait, my next thing has a different tone, or my next thing has a different thing, or wait, it doesn't take place in Poland, and this person only liked the movie because it took place in... And I'm like, yeah, Jesus, I know. And so it's not healthy at all. There's a great, this actress, Laura Linney, who I knew, she said, I never read reviews because I don't want anybody telling me how to do my job. And I thought, oh, that's the best way to put it, which is that, like, yes, reviews are great and important for audiences to read so they know what to see or whatever, how to think about things. But no, for the actual person making it, like, no, I want to do my job my own way.
It's so funny that you say that because Laura, sitting in that chair, was the one who opened my mind up about reviews. And
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Did she say essentially what I said?
Essentially, reviews are bullshit. They tell you nothing. And also, she made another point that is was very interesting to me, which is, criticism is dangerous and that everybody feels entitled to give criticism and read it as criticism. But true criticism is an art form. And both it's dangerous to engage with it and the internet has ruined it. That was sort of her perspective in 2019. When
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I guess. I mean, I think I don't engage with it as she seems really dialed into her own feelings about it. I haven't really exactly worked out mine.
Do you ever navigate imposter syndrome?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. But I mean, everybody I know navigates imposter syndrome. I mean, just to give an example, like a play I wrote starred Vanessa Redgrave. She was 76 years old. It was like her first off-Broadway play in years because she'd only worked on the West End and Broadway. She was so overwhelmingly overqualified for the play we were doing in a 185-seat theater. And yet she was at the theater 4 hours early every night panicking that this performance tonight was not going to go well. And so when I think about the question you just asked, you started young, you've been around for a while, do you have that feeling? I'm like, yes, anybody who is kind of just worried about what they do has that feeling, because there's really no way. We're in this kind of subjective business, which is like, I'm only good insofar as the people in front of me at that moment think I'm good. You know what I mean? There's nothing like you could win awards or whatever, but still, you're being judged moment to moment as a performer, as an artist, as any artist would be. And so it's normal, I think, feel that kind of feeling. Okay,
so going back to what you said about your acting teacher, really encouraging you to channel a lot of the feelings that being a director brought up into your work. What do you do with imposter syndrome?
I've had some really nice connections with other actors, and, that can be helpful. When you're working with scene partners, you express a similar feeling, and oftentimes the reaction would be, wait a second, you feel that way too? Oh, wait, if you feel that way, then maybe I don't, because I think of you as somebody who's so far above that. When I saw Vanessa Redgrave do that, it made my anxieties about doing the show feel far more founded, And so that's quite helpful, commiserating with other people who I am sure feel similarly.
Well, you must sort of go out into the world and have these sort of short-term, deep interactions with all kinds of people that you don't have a relationship with before, right? Most recently, because it's your most recent project, Kieran Culkin. He wasn't somebody that you knew well before.
Right. No.
And then you're thrust into a position where you're both such experts in your field, and you also need to navigate a new professional relationship. I'm curious if you've learned anything about how to do that well.
It's so funny. I think a lot of it is luck. I just don't know how to describe it, except a lot of it is luck. I cast Kieran without knowing him. I spoke to him on the phone for 10 minutes about the script. He's uninterested as an actor. He's uninterested in, dissecting it like the way I do, analyze it. He's really spontaneous and lives in the moment. So he showed up to set a day before we were shooting and just came out of the gate swinging. These are several different sports metaphors. Came out of the gate swinging and landed the puck right in the end zone. He was just immediately like he is in the movie. He was just very comfortable grabbing me, by the neck, basically manhandling me the way his character does and kind of making fun of me the way his character does. And even though I was his his boss, nominally. So it was luck, I could say. We kind of fell into it. And then actors with experience know how to kind of manufacture that thing in case you don't have the luck of chemistry.
Right.
And that's what I would call, working. You know what I mean? And so that happens a lot. If my character's supposed to be in love with somebody, you don't fall in love like you fall in love with your wife, but you try to find them appealing so that you can play those feelings in a way that feels sincere. And, I'm not psychotic, so I understand that those things are fictional, but that's the kind of stuff you do to help.
I want to sort of hit one more big idea before we leave. I remember reading something you said about writing. I think it was the Vanity Fair interview from the fall, where you just said, I don't know why I'm so confident in this. I just know that I am. I got this.
Oh, huh.
And it made me, and by the way, I could have just totally added my own bias. That could not be what you meant at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it made me think about your relationship to your creative work. And it made me wonder where you question yourself a lot.
Wow.
And if you have blind confidence in any part of the creative process.
There's something arrogant about writing. You have the idea that not only should this be made into a movie, but you know what? Movie stars should play these parts, and somebody should spend $1 million on posters for this thing that I'm sitting here. There's a certain arrogance with that, and I don't think of myself as arrogant. I'm an incredibly self-questioning, self-conscious person. But I will say, I love the things that I'm writing so much. I love it so much. Again, the next thing I'm doing, as I was telling you, is takes place in the world of community theater. And I love it so much. I love it. I don't know how to describe it, except this is my favorite thing in the world to do. I don't want to go on a beach. I want to just sit there and have these characters talk to each other. And I love it so much. So I wouldn't really call it confident. I go out into the world with it nervously. Would somebody be open to producing this? Oh my God, thank you so much. Would somebody open to acting in it? Thank you so much. I feel so indebted. That's all real. But yet I love it so much. And so I don't know how to describe it except to say that it's possibly confidence, possibly just it just tickles me so deeply. My imagination, I'm not saying I'm good at it. I'm saying the things that are coming out of my imagination tickle me so deeply that I want to pursue them. And then as soon as I start pursuing them and other people come on board, I feel immediately guilty and indebted. I can't believe I'm dragging all these people. I can't believe people are paying for movie posters. But the actual thing of it, it tickles me to no end. I don't know if that sounds arrogant. It's just the only part that I really feel so good about.
Well, I think so much about what it means to be living your purpose. And I hate the word purpose uttered on a career podcast because I think we've sort of overblown the idea of purpose.
Yeah, good point.
But I'll say, I wrote one book. I probably won't write another because I did not like the selling part. I did not like the publishing part. And I got super lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, I mean, I had a really wonderful agent who sold the idea before I wrote it. And then I had a pandemic to write it.
Right.
I had all the time. And I loved every minute of the writing. I'd wake up and it would be, 2 or 3 hours in a day because there's a lot going on as well. And during that time, I would not doubt that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. I wouldn't, that question, which is always on the surface of everything I'm doing, even
gone.
sitting here right now, it's just parked for a while.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm living in the thing.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it was amazing. And then it was over, and then the selling part, and that, I could take it or leave it.
Yeah.
But if I could have that year and a half of my professional life back, I would in a second.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
And that's sort of what I wonder that's sort of what I wonder if calling might be.
Yeah. No one's asked for it. No one is demanding it. You have a publisher and everything, but the world isn't certainly knocking down my door and saying, make a movie. And I'm sitting there trying to figure out, what do I make? No. This is something I feel compelled to do for reasons that probably have to do with, my childhood,
Yeah.
I wanted to be loved slightly more in a different way or whatever. So yeah, I guess that's a calling in the sense that no one else is calling.
That was Jesse Eisenberg, the writer, director, and lead actor in A Real Pain. You can see it now in theaters everywhere, and you really should. I'm going to remember this conversation for a long time. Specifically, Jesse seems to be at that inflection point that occurs for so many people midway through a career. He's had real success in one area, and he's hungry to grow, to write and direct more of his own work, to infuse his calling into his career. I really appreciated his thoughts on writing.
I love it so much. I love it. I don't know how to describe it except this is my favorite thing in the world to do.
Maybe I loved hearing him so much because that's how I feel about writing too. It's the one thing I can do in my life that I never question. The place where I stumble into flow. Now I ask you, Do you have anything like this in your own life? Maybe it's not writing, maybe something else. How are you nurturing it? We're going to talk about all of this and more at office hours this week. We'll go live from the LinkedIn news page on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. You can find the link to join us in the show notes, in our weekly newsletter, or in our group, or you can even drop us a line at hellomonday@linkedin.com, and we'll send you the link. Hello Monday is a production of LinkedIn News. Lolia Briggs produced this episode with help from Rachel Karp. Sarah Storm is our senior producer, sound design and engineering by Asaf Gadron. Our theme music was composed just for us by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. Michaela Greer is a friend to everyone. Enrique Montalvo is our executive producer. Dave Pond is head of production and creative operations. Courtney Coop is head of original programming. Dan Roth is the editor-in-chief of LinkedIn. And a special thanks to our senior producer, Sarah Storm, for all the work she did to help this episode come alive. I'm Jessie Hempel. We're back next Monday. Thanks for listening.